It is. Those are very small, fine particulate nanoparticles.
Don't nanoparticles get into our lungs?
Not only do they get into our lungs, but they also get into our bloodstream, where they can then pass the blood-brain barrier. And with help from fluoride acts as essentially a friend to aluminum, because it helps the aluminum pass through the blood-brain barrier, which is concerning to many of us that are aware of the connection between Alzheimer's and the other neurological connection to aluminum. So yes, it's very toxic to human health.
I think another element here that it makes it important to understand that they are nanoparticles. And okay, so they're small, yes, and they do all the things that Mike just said. But also, since they're so small, they can take on an electrical charge that interacts with the gravitational field or the electrical field around the Earth. And that means that their weight is so minuscule that the electrical charge can overcome gravity. And the scientists figure that these things can stay suspended in the stratosphere or in the atmosphere for very, very long periods of time, up to years. In other words, they put them up there today, they'll still be there a year or 2 years later. So this is no kidding around. These people are permanently altering our Earth.
How can anybody do an assessment of climate and leave out the sun, HAARP, and chemtrail spraying? I don't get it. Do you? How can you do any kind of assessment of what's going on with climate and leave out these three factors? I thought it was fascinating that Karen Johnson stepped forward from Arizona, the former state senator, to speak about this. That was very courageous of her.
What a great woman. Unfortunately, we had about an hour and a half interview with her alone, and what a great woman, and definitely a freedom lover, standing up for other issues as well. But yeah, she's well aware of the spraying that occurs, and like Ed and many of the other people who we interviewed, she brought a tremendous amount of credibility. Finally, we have politicians who are willing to stand up and speak about this. So we're in a very excellent time for the movement, because we're finally getting credibility not only from the scientific community but from other politicians. So it's very exciting for those of us that have hopes that we're going to have a profound effect and possibly even stop these programs.
Here's a mother of 11 kids that stepped up to the plate. That's really fantastic. The wildfires that many of the firefighters are dealing with, in your film, talked about the fact that air samples are showing that the aluminum in the air is accelerating these wildfires, that they've never seen anything like this. That's scary.
Well, it is, and again, we're we hope to motivate some people, and I know a lot of people are going to be angry because wildfires have been becoming more intense over the past, since the inception of these programs, and aluminum again acts as an accelerant. So a lot of people are not going to be happy about this. Also, one thing that they are seeing in heavily wooded areas is an increase in fires. Why is that? Well, metal in the sky is a conductor, and during electrical storms with a lot of lightning, they're seeing a tremendous increase in lightning. So a lot of people who have had additional fires on the property are not going to be real happy when they find out why this is happening.
Edward, I know that in the film you had talked about your initial impression of the chemtrails being pretty much in the NATO countries, but I think it's worldwide. I have friends in New Zealand who said they spray like crazy there. In Australia, it's all over.
Yes, it is. And when we say the NATO countries, I don't recall what nations are actually signed up. I know the number has been increasing. But anyway, these are mostly nations which are centered around the political hub of the United States and Great Britain. So that would include New Zealand and Australia, former British dependencies, and Canada, the United States, and of course all of the NATO countries in Europe. Now, relatively recently, we understand that some of the former countries behind the Iron Curtain, all of a sudden, the minute they have started talks with NATO to be included in NATO, almost the same month, they say, that chemtrails have been started in those countries, like Romania, for example.
Wow.
Yeah, and in fact, I got an email just recently from some persons that they've never seen chemtrails there until the month that they were saying, yes, we want to be part of NATO. And all of a sudden, bingo, there they were. So I don't know what to say. That's a clue. That's all we can say. There's some kind of a political grouping up there, and it's well underway. And I think the most shocking part of all of this is that the officials everywhere are denying that this is happening. And it's been going on for at least 10 and probably 15 years. That fact alone should really worry people.
What else do you think can be done right now? Besides informing the public, how would we hold our leaders and our elected officials accountable?
I don't think we hold them accountable. The ones that are there, we have to replace them. They're absolutely beyond being held accountable. They've sold their souls. There's no way you can reclaim them. They'll never be accountable, those people. They have to be replaced. That's a pretty hard line, but I really believe that.
You know what was so shocking to me watching this film, the part when you went in to talk to the congressmen and women, that there's a distancing. They have no connection to what you're talking about. They have absolute zero interest. They could care less.
Right.
They totally act like they're doing you a favor to give you a second of their time. I watched them walk past you. It was disgusting, disgusting. And yet, what is more important than our air, our water, our seeds, our food? Seriously, and our health.
If you're a congressman, the answer would be your job.
Then I agree with you. Most of them have to be replaced.
I mean, they've already demonstrated that they can't be trusted. We know that they're well enough informed to understand basically what's going on. We know that. So when they say, I don't know anything about it, we know they're lying. And secondly, even those that do say, I know about it, they don't want to talk about it, or they say, well, we're holding hearings on it and so forth. I mean, they've already sold their souls. So I don't even know why we bother trying to make them accountable. We just have to find people to replace them, that's all.
And I think the only reluctance that up-and-coming leaders and elected officials would have, it's all about comfort. They may not want to be associated with something this heavy. Literally, you can go out in L.A. and watch this. I could probably take these Congress people out in L.A. and say, I want 2 days of your time, and they could see what's going on. And this is not rocket science. This is not UFOs. This is right there.
Yeah, it's right there in Washington, D.C. They don't have to come to L.A. to see it.
That's true.
And you know, you said something very important. They don't want to cover this. And I don't want to cover this. I would never want to cover an issue like this. Unfortunately, this issue has come to me. I cannot walk outside without breathing in massive amounts of these toxic chemicals. And it should not be happening, and I have to do something about it. So the point is, I believe that I just look into the future in 10 years, and I don't know if many of these people walking around are going to be alive, and that's how serious it is. So no, we don't want to deal with this, but we have to, because each and every one of us is so deeply affected by this. We really are, and I don't think that there's a greater issue at hand. Ecosystems are dying, fish are dying, wildlife is dying, and people are dying. It's time to deal with this. We cannot afford to ignore it any longer.
I think it was also very interesting in the film that the geoengineers are totally disconnected from what they're talking about, and that they're using Carnegie Mellon as the, quote, experts on health. Quote, Carnegie Mellon has said it's okay. So basically, there's not a problem. I'm not talking about everything they said, but basically the fact that they could even use Carnegie Mellon as the be-all, end-all of health managers, science. A lot of these geoengineers are totally in their heads. They can't possibly be dealing with reality to not be looking at what these metals do to the human body and ecosystems. They can't.
And I'd like to address that first, and then I'd like Ed to address part of this, because he brought something up to our attention in the final days in the edit. And Dane Wigington, who is a solar expert in the film, asked David Keith, so what would dumping 10 to 20 million tons of toxic aluminum into the sky have on human health. And David Keith looked and he said, well,